Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading from Śrīmad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 16. Krishna chastises the serpent Kaliya, verses 47 to 49. I will read 47, 48, and then we will chant 49. Avyakṛta-vihāraya sarva-vyakṛta-siddhaye Hrishikesha namaste-stu manaye mauna-shiline. O Lord Hrishikesha, Master of the senses, please let us offer our obeisances unto you, whose pastimes are inconceivably glorious. Your existence can be inferred from the necessity for a creator and revealer of all cosmic manifestations. But although your devotees can understand you in this way, to the non-devotees you remain silent, absorbed in self-satisfaction. Verse 48. Paravaragatikaaya sarvadhyakshaya te nama avishvaya cha vishvaya tadrashte selchahetave. Obeisances unto you, who know the destination of all things, superior and inferior, and who are the presiding regulator of all that be. You are distinct from the universal creation, and yet you are the basis upon which the illusion of material creation evolves, and also the witness of this illusion. Indeed, you are the root cause of the entire world. Purport. The words para and avara indicate superior subtle elements and inferior gross ones. The words also indicate superior personalities, devotees of the Lord, and inferior personalities who are unaware of the glories of God. Lord Krishna knows the destiny of all superior and inferior entities, animate and inanimate, and as the Supreme Absolute Truth, he remains in his unique position above everything, as indicated by the word sarva-vyakṛta. Text 49. Tvam yasya janma-sthiti-saṁyamān vibho guṇair anīho kṛta-kāla-śakti-dhṛk tat-tat-svabhāvān pratibodhayan sataḥ samīkṣayāmogha-vihāra īhase tvam, you, he, indeed, asya, of this universe, janma-sthiti-saṁyamān, the creation, maintenance, and destruction. Vibho, Almighty Lord, guṇair, by the modes of nature, anīhaḥ, although uninvolved in any material endeavor, akṛta, beginningless, kṛta-kāla-śakti, of the potency of time, dhṛk, the holder, tat-tat, of each of the modes, sva-bhāvān, the distinctive characteristics, pratibodhayan, awakening, sataḥ, which are already present in their dormant state, samīkṣayā, by your glance, amogha-vihāra, whose playful activities are impeccable, īhase, you act. Translation. O Almighty Lord, although you have no reason to become involved in material activity, still you act through your eternal potency of time to arrange for the creation, maintenance, and destruction of this universe. You do this by awakening the distinct functions of each of the modes of nature, which before the creation lie dormant, simply by your glance. You perfectly execute all these activities of cosmic control in a sporting mood. Purport. Skeptics may question why the Supreme Lord has created the material world, which is full of birth, maintenance, and death. Here, the Nagapatnis point out the Lord's pastimes are amogha, beyond any discrepancy. Shri Krishna actually desires that all conditioned souls live with him in his eternal kingdom. But those forgetful souls who are inimical to their loving relationship with God must go to the material world and be subjected to the conditions of time. The fortunate conditioned souls are startled into remembrance of their actual position as loving servants of the Lord. And from within the heart, the Lord then encourages them to come back home, back to Godhead, where time is conspicuous by its absence, and where eternal blissful existence supersedes the dramatic but disturbing functions of cosmic creation and annihilation. Mukam karoti vachalam bhangam lankate girim yakvipam samham vande sigurunti natavinam om jnana timirandasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshur meditam yena tasmai shri gurave namaha. The Nagapatnis have brought us to the beginning of creation. Mahavishnu is lying on Anantashesh. He's glancing at Durga. What is in his glance? Three things: time, jiva, living entity, and karma. Being carried by Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva will give them to Durga. Lord doesn't have anything to do with Durga, he just glances, and Lord Shiva carries it out. So the Lord is breathing out. His breath is beginning to breathe out. What's the first thing that comes out in his breath? The personified Vedas. And what's the first thing they do? They offer prayers to glorify him. So I'll just sing the first prayer that the personified Vedas sing to him when they come out in his breath. Jaya 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 janma-sthiti-saṁyamān guṇaन् tamasya-ratmana samavavruddha-samastapaka akṛta-kāla-śakti-dhṛk kachira-jayatmana chacharato-nucharenigama. Shrutis said, "Victory, victory to you, O unconquerable one. By your nature, you are perfectly full in all opulences. So please defeat the eternal power of illusion, who assumes control over the modes of nature to create difficulties for conditioned souls." So they're asking him, okay, now the material creation is starting, please defeat it, immediately stop it. Let the illusion be finished. Let the illusion be finished. Everyone's suffering. Oh, you who awaken all the energies of moving and non-moving embodied beings, sometimes the Vedas can recognize you as you sport with your material and spiritual potency. Hear the word sport. He's in a sporting mood. When he's creating, he's having fun, actually. So the Vedas are waking up the Lord, and they are expressing the purpose of creation. Wake up, everybody. Don't sleep anymore. How long will you sleep on the lap of the witch called Maya? He's waking everyone up so they can go back to Godhead. So he was feeling imperfect. There's a verse in the 3rd canto that the Lord was there before creation. There was no cosmic manifestation at that time. But he felt imperfect without his plenary and separated parts and parcels. He felt, okay, something's lacking. Something's lacking. So he was there, but the external energy was sleeping. Prabhupada said it's just like a husband feeling lonely in the absence of his wife, although he wasn't really like that, but that's the poetic simile that Prabhupada used. That the Lord was feeling something's missing. So he wanted to create this world out of compassion. He wanted to wake up Durga to enjoy, and also he wanted to wake us up to enjoy also. But in this world we don't enjoy that much, we suffer mostly. But the real purpose of creation is his compassion to wake us up and go back to Godhead. So Prabhupada, in the purport of that verse in the 3rd canto, he said the whole process is to enliven the sleeping conditioned souls to the real life of spiritual consciousness, so they may become as perfect as the ever-liberated souls. He wants us to go back to Godhead. And very interesting, this was in the early days, Prabhupada wrote 3rd canto, and what did he say in this purport? Krishna wants every part and parcel of his different energies to take part in the blissful rasa, because participation with the Lord in his eternal Rasa Leela is the highest living condition. He wanted us to join Rasa Leela, not only wake up. So that's something quite extraordinary. Purpose of creation is to go back to Godhead and join the Rasa Leela. That's in the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 3:524, if you want to look it up. So yes, in the purport it says, Krishna actually desires all conditioned souls live with him in his eternal kingdom, but those forgetful souls who are inimical to their loving relationship with God must go to the material world and be subjected to conditions of time. Yes. So time, he works, the verse says here that the Lord works through time. So we're going to discuss about the Lord's energy of time. What is time? For the non-devotees, time is destruction, kala. It's death. Death is coming. Everything's finished for them. Everything's finished. Their whole life, what they've worked for, everything is done. Mrityu sarvaharascha. So for the non-devotees, time is death. But for the devotees, it's different. He is the protector of devotees. Non-devotees, they see time as a snake. It creeps up on you and bites you. And it's before you're not really ready, but are you ever ready when it's the time of death? Time of death is going to hit you. Are you ready? No, usually not. But we prepare. We try to prepare for death. So Yudhishthira in Mahabharata was asked the question, what is the news? So the news is, in case you don't know already, this world is like a frying pan, and the sun is the fire. Days and nights are the fuel, and the months and seasons are the stirring spoon. And all creatures, and who is the cook? Who is cooking us? Time. We're being all cooked by time. Some of us are well done, and some of us are fried, and we are ready to go. So this is the news. You read the newspaper, you'll find the same thing, that we are all being fried one way or the other. So Bhishma Dev was commenting on his deathbed that how wonderful is time. How can there be reverses in the presence of King Yudhishthira, the son of the demigod, controlling religion, and Bhima, the greatest fighter in the world? How could time be reverses? How could there be reverses? And Krishna was the friend of the Pandavas, but still they were suffering by time. So time is the influence of the Lord, and Prabhupada said it is the inexplicable wish of the Lord himself. So if you can't figure out what's happening with you, it's the inexplicable wish of the Lord. So why do great devotees seem to suffer? Prabhupada says that the Lord teaches the world by teaching the devotees. So now there's the fighting in Ukraine, and there was Devamrita Swami was at the beginning, the first or second day of the conflict. Devamrita Swami was telling devotees, now, why does the Lord do this? The Lord wants you to be an example of how devotees live in this world and how they respond. And it was very interesting. I was reading a comment from Mariupol was a place where all the devotees were cut off. There was no food, no water, no electricity, minus 15 degrees. And somehow they all got out safely. They're all alive. And so one devotee was expressing her feelings that, yes, it's very painful, but it's the wish of the Lord. And now I learned how to be servant of the servant, and I'm very glad. It was a painful experience, but I'm glad I had it. And now I have nothing left. I have no possessions. Krishna took everything, but I have Krishna. And so yes, the devotees give the example how to live in this world. An interesting thing, another one of those devotees said was, you never think it's going to happen to you. So we should also not think it's not going to happen to us. We may be also in the middle of a war in a matter of time. Who knows? So what is our duty? Prabhupada says in the purport, a devotee's duty, therefore, is to ungrudgingly accept tribulations from the Lord as a benediction. As a benediction. This is your mercy, Krishna. Thank you. Thank you for giving that to me. So one time, Srila Prabhupada was very sick, with fever, with a dysentery, for 3 days. And his servant, it wasn't you. You told me it wasn't you. It was not Chudakirti, but another servant. He was afraid to ask Srila Prabhupada, were you suffering? So he said, ask Prabhupada, does a pure devotee suffer? And Srila Prabhupada said, it was a lover's bite. And so he saw the hand of Krishna. He saw, oh, Krishna is biting me. And so sometimes devotees, we hear that, for the non-devotees, time of death is just like a rat in the mouth of the cat. He knows what's going to happen. He's in great fear, great anxiety. And for the devotee, time of death is the kitten in the mouth of the mother cat. So she knows where the mother cat's taking her, back to home, back to the home. But sometimes during our life, we may feel the teeth of the mother cat. We may feel it in our life sometimes. And so, why are people afraid of time? According to 3rd Canto, 29th chapter, they're afraid because they don't know time is Krishna. They don't know that this is, so everyone is afraid. And Prabhupada told his experience of time in World War II, and they were bombing. So just like in Ukraine, Prabhupada experienced this. And he said, we went to the shelter, the bombing began, and we were seeing, this is the Vishvarupa of Krishna. Of course, it's another form of Krishna, but not a very lovable form. We cannot love the Vishvarupa. Suppose your father is a policeman and he comes home shooting his gun, you'll be afraid of your father. And so that's Krishna shooting his gun in the Vishvarupa form. So how do devotees see time? Prahlad Maharaj, in his prayer, 7th Canto, 9th chapter, says, yes, the time is your representation. No one can conquer you, but as for me, I'm being crushed by the wheel of time. So I surrender to you. Kindly take me under the protection of your lotus feet. So that's, again, the devotee's mood. What do we do when time attacks, when we're being attacked by time? So Prabhupada, in that purport to that verse, said suffering humanity must surrender to Krishna. Sarvadharmam prityaja mamekam sharanam vraja. Abandon all varieties of religion, surrender. To me, do not fear. So if we surrender, we're protected. Krishna will protect us. So yes, Kunti Devi also in her prayers, she was saying, thank you, Krishna. Yes, I appreciate the suffering, because when we're suffering, I see you here. Another example I just read yesterday also was this devotee, Ananta Shanti, the first devotee in Russia. He was in the psychiatric hospital for 6 years, and they were giving him experimental drugs, and the drug was such a way you could not sit still for a minute. You had to always be moving. He couldn't sleep. And after 6 years, he said, yes, they were torturing me, but I saw every second Prabhupada and Krishna were with me. So amazing, amazing experiences. So Kunti said that you are Kala Avayavaya, you are the witness. We heard in this verse also, one of these verses, that the Lord is the witness. So another name, this is interesting what Prabhupada says in this purport, another name of Paramatma feature of the Lord is Kala. Did you know? Paramatma is also time, Kala. So for the devotees, he's our friend. He's our friend. We don't have to worry. And for those non-devotees, he's a witness. And he gives their proper reactions. So devotees, therefore, don't waste time. Avyarta kala tvam. That's a symptom of bhava. You don't waste time. And devotees are beyond time. Did you know that Yamaraj is here with us today? There's a verse in Bhagavatam in the first 16th chapter. The sages of Naimisharanya have invited Yamaraj for Bhagavatam class. So he's here with maybe one of you, I don't know, could be Yamaraj, some guest, we don't know. But he's here listening because he likes to hear Krishna Katha. So the verse says, as long as Yamaraj is present here, no one shall meet with death. The great sages have invited Yamaraj, who is a representative of the Lord. Living beings who are under his grip should take advantage by hearing the deathless nectar in the form of narration of pastimes of the Lord. So we should hear. That's what will save us from Yamaraj. So Yamaraj advised his messengers, don't go to the devotees. Don't go near them. Go to those who are not chanting Hare Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada was speaking on this verse in the 6th canto, don't go near the devotees. And it was a room full of Indian gentlemen. So Srila Prabhupada said, don't go near my devotees. Go to those who don't become life members of ISKCON. The whole class became life members. If a pure devotee says something, you better. I think one of them was on his deathbed, and he said, oh no, I better become a life member before I die. So if a pure devotee, he can add things. He can add things. So we have to, Srila Prabhupada said in a lecture, try to perceive the truth, that since you have begun Krishna consciousness, your death has been stopped. We will not die. We will go to Krishna. We will not have a death like normal people screaming and shouting. There's another verse in 2nd canto, 3rd chapter. Ayur harati vaipunsam, udyanastan-chayanasau, tasyarte yakshanonita uttama shloka vartaya. That both by rising and setting, the sun decreases the duration of life of everyone, except one who is hearing about Krishna. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his song Udila Aruna, he said, you spend your nights uselessly sleeping and the daytime decorating your bodies. You receive this greatest gift of the human form, but you do not care for it, not caring for the darling of Yashoda. You slowly fall through your last moments to death. With every rising and setting, a day passes and is lost, so why do you remain idle and not serve the Lord of the heart? Now, I would like to tell you a very interesting thing about time, which you may not know. And this is from 7th canto, 1st chapter. The time factor enhances sattva guna. If you're in the mode of goodness, time is on your side. Time will be with you, will help you. And why is that? Because the Lord is the controller of time. He favors the demigods. He favors those in goodness. So always be in goodness, at least. If you can't be Krishna conscious, try to be in goodness. And even while you're Krishna conscious, it's good to be in goodness. Good to stay in goodness. And so, as Kala Sarpa, Krishna chastised Kaliya. Now the wives are praying, no, Kali changed now, so you should favor him. You should, he's become a devotee, so please don't kill him. So if we become like Prahlad, then we get the mercy of the Lord. So there is a time for creation. This verse is about creation and maintenance and destruction. There is a time for creation. There is a time for maintenance, and there is a time for destruction. That's described in the second canto, that in the beginning of creation, there is penance, there is Brahma, the Prajapatis, the great sages who generate children. During maintenance, there's Vishnu, the demigods, and kings, and devotional service. And at the end, destruction, there is irreligion, Lord Shiva, and an atheist full of anger. So we don't want to be around. We better go back to Godhead before the destruction comes. Of course, it may come any day. Who knows the way things are going in the world. So we should be prepared. Here Krishna comes in time, but not in the spiritual world. It's said that the spiritual world, back to Godhead, the Lord encourages to come back home, back to Godhead, where time is conspicuous by his absence. No time in the spiritual world. So I can give you an example. When Krishna was here 5,000 years ago, and he was living in Dwaraka in 16,108 palaces. Now Narada Muni visited all of those palaces within a fraction of time, like 1 or 2 minutes. And he saw different times in each of the palaces, in the different palaces. One palace, Krishna was waking up, having his breakfast. In another palace, it was noontime, and he was having his lunch. Another palace, it was evening. Another palace was afternoon. They were playing in the pools. They were having, so it's different time zones there. It's not like here. If you try to imagine 16,000 time zones, your brain will just blow up. It's not possible. And but time is different there. Time is quite different. Krishna can have different times and do things at different times at the same time. Isn't that interesting? So Prabhupada also was beyond time. So I have one story here from Shuddhakirti about Prabhupada and time. So I'll tell it, and if I make a mistake, you can correct me. So Shuddhakirti was saying, I was only 20 years old when I was his servant, but I had a difficult time keeping up with him as he traveled around the world. He was 75, and sometimes on his morning walks, his disciples would look at each other, shake their heads, and wonder when he was going back to the temple, because they were getting tired of walking. I know I went on one morning walk with Prabhupada in Juhu. And I was running, I was late. I was running to catch up, and then I caught up, and Prabhupada stopped everything, turned around, Hare Krishna. Who am I? I'm just nothing, nobody. But he noticed me. He had the time. He had the time for me. And then we started walking, and I was also 20-something. He was 70, and I was thinking, how does he walk so fast? I could never figure it out. I couldn't figure it out. How does he walk so fast? It was beyond me. He's not a part of this world. So here's the story. During a short flight from New York, many devotees arranged seats in the same row as Srila Prabhupada. And as the flight progressed, they began to fall asleep and do the dive bomb. And you try to keep awake, and then you fall asleep, and then you get back up fast. And Prabhupada was not amused. So Prabhupada said, just see, everyone is wide awake except for the devotees. They are in Maya, sleeping. Everyone else is awake. Why they cannot stay awake? So Shuddhakirti says, usually when Srila Prabhupada addressed me in this way, I became silent. I was afraid of saying the wrong thing and possibly disturb him. Further, I simply sat in silence and waited for him to stop. This was one such. During my stay with Prabhupada, I learned there was no such thing as a good reason. He said, there wasn't a point you could make Prabhupada couldn't defeat. So I didn't even try to argue. Devotees only slept a few hours compared to the non-devotees. Prabhupada spent a few more minutes making the point, and one thing was sure, I did not sleep on this flight. And so this was Prabhupada, beyond time. The devotees are beyond time, and there's a verse somewhere in Bhagavatam that says that. So there's an interesting example. One of our devotees went and had darshan. The deities are also beyond, well, they should be beyond time. They're Krishna. He was watching, one devotee was watching the pujari of Radha Govinda temple, Prabhupada's original temple. And he was dressing the deities, putting on clothes, and finally he put a watch on Krishna. It's like Krishna needs to know the time. But we think, the devotees think like that. Yeah, Krishna needs to know. And so, yeah, we should not waste time. So I have a little nice thing here from Prabhupada Nectar also. From Gita, there's a verse, the regulated principles of freedom, how you have to be regulated in your eating, sleeping, working, and recreation. And so this was written by Satsvarup Maharaj. Prabhupada was liberated, but both to show us and to live in the most effective way to accomplish his service, he organized the 24 hours of the day and night. There was the best time when the air was cool and the neighborhood quiet for a morning walk. There was the best time to greet the deities, according to their time. There was the best time for devotees to gather. A suitable time to eat for health, like what time, 1 o'clock or 1:30? Yeah, 1:30? Lunch. 1:30, so that was the best time for digestion. Yeah, the sun is the highest in the sky, so Prabhupada used to eat 1:30. And there was a reasonable time to answer letters, to regulate his men so they would rise early. He rose early. He preached to his guests at times convenient for their schedules. He scheduled his transcendental acts not for the rule's sake, but performing the constant optimum service to Krishna for spreading and solidifying his ISKCON movement in this world. So I like to end with one story about the deities of New York and time. One time they decided to change the Mangal Arti to 3:45 a.m. from 4:30 so they could get out early and distribute books. So Prabhupada took darshan of the deities, and Prabhupada said to the pujaris, Krishna looks very tired. He's not getting enough sleep. You know, he has to herd the cows whole day. New York, I don't know where, but he said, so they changed the time back to 4:30. Yeah, so even Krishna seems to be under time in some way over here. And Prabhupada could see it. Prabhupada could see it. So the lesson we learn is don't waste time. For devotees, that's the lesson. Don't waste time. Use our time. We're in Vrindavan. It's the best place to be. So we should use our time nicely. So I'll stop here if there's any questions. Of Panchagodav. I'm surprised.
In Miami, we had a very dedicated devotee who was our head pujari. And he had so much service, but he was also very determined to finish his rounds. So you see him outside the kitchen door because he's cooking and also serving the deities with his japa bag in his hand and slouched over. And it took him about, I think, 6 or 8 hours to chant those rounds. So how determined should we be to follow the examples of the advanced devotees and not sleep and maybe perform Herculean tasks to accomplish our regulated vows?
Well, we can't imitate the great devotees, but there is a story of Bhakta, I think Bhaktadas is his name. He was in Los Angeles, and he was working like 20 hours a day doing construction work or something, painting or something. And he went to Prabhupada. He said, Prabhupada, I just don't have time to chant my rounds. So Prabhupada asked him, so how much time are you sleeping? He said, 4 hours. He said, okay, don't sleep. 2 hours. He was sleeping 2 hours.
No, Prabhupada said, instead of 4, sleep 2.
Instead of 4, sleep 2. Yeah, and he was chanting in the shower to keep awake. And one time he was with Prabhupada on a program, And he was so sleepy, Prabhupada said, go to the room and sleep. And then, like maybe 1 hour later, Prabhupada came in the same room, the bed next to him, and started sleeping. And he offered obeisance. He said, no, you stay. So that was the benediction he got from from only sleeping 2 hours. That Prabhupada slept in the same room with him. But yes, we should not imitate, especially at our age. We can't imitate anymore. When you're young, you're full of energy. Yeah, would you like to say? Haribo. Mahatma.
So, you were saying, you were reading something, or saying, which is the suffering is a benediction.
Yeah. Prabhupada was saying that, yeah.
So, and sometimes we suffer, and we wonder, Krishna, why? I've given my life to you. I followed everything, and this problem is happening. Could you comment on that, and also how we sometimes create our own suffering by our own stupidity, and then we say, Krishna, why are you doing this to me? When it's not him doing it, we did it, we got a result, but we think Krishna did it.
Yeah, just like recently, a few days ago, my son decided to drive from New York to Florida, Alachua, in 1 day. And he thought, yeah, I can do it, yes. And he did it, but then now he got a migraine and stomach problem. And so sometimes we think we can do extreme things. When you're young especially, you think you're invincible. And we thought we were too. But now we've got to the age where we understand that no, you have to pace yourself. And Krishna does say you have to regulate your working, eating, recreation. And there was one place where I heard Prabhupada said 8 hours, 8 hours, 8 hours. Like working, recreation, eating, sleeping. Sleeping 8 hours. So no, we shouldn't imitate, we have to take care of our health. If we don't have health, then what can we do? What can we do? And suffering, it's going to come. If you're a devotee or you're not a devotee, it's still going to come, but the result is different. When we're a devotee, we can see the hand of Krishna, like Anantashanti saw the hand of Krishna behind it. You can see the hand of Krishna. And we can understand, okay, he's reducing it. I deserve more, but he's reducing it. I should have gotten so much more suffering, but actually, no, Krishna is reducing it. I'm only getting a token of what I should have gotten. And if you're positive and if you see Krishna, then you're not as affected by the suffering as if you are miserable and blame Krishna and think, oh, this is horrible. You have to see Krishna somehow in every situation. And it's preparation for the time of death, when it's going to be the ultimate suffering. When you leave your body, it's not pleasant, usually. Unless you're like Dhruva Maharaj. Your Vaikuntha airplane comes and takes you back to Godhead. There was one devotee, her name Kunti, our God sister. And she was suffering tremendously in a wheelchair from cancer. But she was so happy. She was encouraging the other devotees. She was preaching to everyone. And the news people, the TV people got her. They put her on the show. And she said, oh, I'm not the body. I'm just not this body. I have nothing to do with it. And I'm going back to Godhead. And the people on the show couldn't believe her, Who is this? So that's what we have to do. I mean, that's a good imitation if you can imitate that, but Kunti Devi, my God sister. And one devotee who was with her at the time of death said they saw the airplane coming for her. So, it was worth it, I guess. But it's not worth it to go into sense gratification. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's worth it to, you suffer for Krishna. Don't suffer for Maya. Because either way you're going to suffer. We're in the material world, you're going to suffer. Like I was talking to some Russian Matajis many years ago, when I was in Russia, it must have been 30 years ago, 1998. And they were telling me, you know, sometimes it seems that people outside are enjoying more than we are. They're happier. We have to do so many austerities. I said, yes, it seems like that. But what's going to happen before they die? And I told them the story of my mother-in-law. I went to visit her in the old folks' home, and she was so miserable. She was completely drugged, had no mind of her own. And they forced her to eat what she didn't want to eat. They're forcibly brushing her hair. They're all wearing diapers. And their recreation was they were sitting in a circle and hitting balloons to each other. So preparing for the next life. But it's not nice. And devotees, they live completely differently, in a different way. Devotees are around chanting. There's garlands, there's tulsi, there's even prasad. Who was it? Oh, it was Jayananda. When he was in hospice, he had a restricted diet, but he was known for eating lots of prasad. So he had the devotees sneak in pakoras and different things, and he would eat all of them and get no bad result. He had them sneak in all this food. Jayananda. So yeah, the devotees don't leave the body in the same way. It's not the same. So it's worth it to suffer for Krishna. Better we suffer for Krishna than suffer for Maya. Shudakirti, yay!
Since you told that story of the airplane,
Yeah.
it's funny, it was 10 o'clock in the morning, and it's only a flight from New York City to Detroit.
Yeah.
It's like not even a 1-hour flight. But the devotees could not sit down for more than 5 minutes without falling asleep. So Prabhupada is looking everywhere he's seeing everyone. There wasn't one missing. Every devotee's head is across the airplane. And Prabhupada's looking, and no one's sleeping on the airplane except his disciples. But he never wasted a second, Prabhupada. Time was always important. And whenever in the daytime, if he knew we were sleeping, he would wake us up. And if ever we were sleeping after Mangalarti, he would bring his bell and wake us up. He wouldn't let us sleep. That was the program. Because we were a temple as well. It didn't matter where you were. You could be in someone's house, like in Perth. There were no temples, there were no devotees, but he turned into a temple. Time, because in the temple time exists in the temple. Everything's Krishna's time, like you said. He doesn't wear a watch. He's not wearing a watch. Prabhupada would wear 2 watches sometimes. Because he was also very careful. When someone gave him a watch, he already had a watch. So before he would give away the other watch, he had to make sure that the new watch was working. He didn't take anything for granted. Okay, one more.
Yeah, we've got time.
Yeah, about time. And I've told this many times, and Prabhupada, he would push you. He would push us to become better. Whatever it was we did, there was always room for improvement. So I always say how when he would walk out the door, and I had to put his shoes on, he didn't stop to get his shoes put on. And I told him, the servant, so we all have our services, at least for me, canes in the left hand and shoehorns in the right hand, and Prabhupada's walking towards you. Everyone is still chanting Gayatri Mantra because they tried to match time with Prabhupada. So Prabhupada was amused by us, just looking at us. He was constantly amused to see how foolish we were. Because he knew we couldn't do what he was doing. So for the morning walk, you have a half a dozen big devotees imitating Prabhupada chanting Gayatri. But they couldn't finish in the same time, so then he'd get up and walk towards the door, and I'm standing there also smiling because everyone's struggling to finish their Gayatri mantras and not miss the morning walk. And he put his right foot into one shoe, and I had the shoe shoehorn, and his next foot was in front of it. He didn't just stop, put on my shoes. You just had to do it, accomplish it while he was moving. So that was time. And like you say, the morning walks. I know Hari K, she wouldn't go on the morning walks sometimes because it was too difficult to keep up with Prabhupada. And there was no question of keeping up with Prabhupada. That was not possible. And I think he really relished, watching us, like little children playing and a bunch of little monkeys trying to do what he was doing. Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Okay, any other question? Jai, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.